What's going on, everybody? Jesse here, and welcome back to another Blueprints to C++ tutorial. In today's episode, we're going to make it so we can open up our inventory. It's not going to give us any information within the inventory, but we're just going to set the inventory windows on the screen. So if I hit tab right now, you're going to see we get the what you are familiar with in my videos, the inventory windows. So over here on the left is a player, over here on the right is the secondary, so like when we're interacting with our storage units and things like that. Now obviously we're not interacting with the storage unit. I just bypass the function to make sure everything is working like it should. So that's the only reason why this one popped up. So I will reset that to not do that, and then in the upcoming episodes we'll make sure we start getting our inventories populated, and then we'll enable the interaction with the storage units, and etc, etc, etc. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, so we're going to start here in the primary character.h folder. We need to create a new variable here, and this is going to be for access to our HUD. So I'm going to make it a T object pointer. We're going to set it as an a main HUD, and then I'm going to call it HUD. For its U property, let's go U property. I'm going to make this blueprint read only, just in case we want to read this in blueprints, we can do so there, but I'm not going to make it visible. I'm not going to make it obvious, but if you need it in blueprints, then that's available there. I'm going to give it a category of character references, and because it is in a private section, we need to go meta equals allow private access. And just to confirm, make sure that this a main HUD is forward declared and not part of the include. For some reason it included it right there, but I'm going to actually cut this out so I can add it over into my CPP, but for whatever reason it added it right there. So let's just go in here and go class a main HUD, and there we go. Now it's forward declared, and we're not putting it in our H includes. We don't get any errors there. So let's head over to the player character CPP file, and we're going to be working on the toggle inventory today. So let's open that up. Now inside of here, let's make sure real quick in the includes, since I copy and pasted that, I'm just going to put the main HUD include up here. And then for the toggle inventory, should be relatively simple. Let's go HUD. Now we're going to set what the HUD should be. We're going to check, is it valid? Is valid. Pass in the HUD. We're make sure that the HUD is valid. And this is essentially going to be an if operator. Is called a ternary operator. You've probably seen me do this before, but we're going to do ternary inside of here, setting the value of the HUD variable. So if it is valid, or excuse me, if it is not valid, as we're asking right there, is it not valid? Then what we need to do, we need to go T object pointer, and we need to go a main HUD, and then we need to cast it to a main HUD. And in order to do that, we need to get world, and then get first player controller. And then from the first player controller, now we can get the game's default HUD, get HUD. There it is right there. And that's just like if you're in blueprints there, if you drag out, you have access to get HUD. So on the player character, you can drag out and type, or on the player controller, excuse me, you drag out and get the default HUD that is set in the game mode. Same thing as with the get player character, get game instance, things like that. They're just available. So that's what we're doing here, is we're just getting that available get HUD, and we're casting it to our a main HUD. And then at the end here, we do a colon to say if that is not true, in other words, it is valid, then we just want to set it back to itself. It's just going to be whatever we had in the HUD to begin with. Now we go if HUD is inventory open. That's the function we created on the HUD previously. Then we want to go HUD close inventory. So if it's open, we want to close it, and then we're going to return. And we're entering the return right here because we don't want to do anything else within this function. We just want to close it. But if this function is not true, if the if is not true, we don't need an else here. We just go HUD open inventory, and then we're going to pass in the inventory that we have, the inventory component that we have, or the pointer to the inventory. And we're also going to end up adding some crafting once we build our crafting component, because we haven't created that yet. Once we create our crafting component here in C++, this is where we'll enter a lot of the crafting implementation of the crafting windows and stuff will be in here. But for now, we don't have that. So now with this, now we need to go check these. So in the HUD, do we have is inventory open, close inventory? So those are within the main HUD. And then same thing with open inventory. So let's just jump over there. I'm going to hold control and click to head over to this function call. And you can see here, this particular function call is in line. We're in the main HUD.h. And so the is inventory open, it's declared right here. And I've put it as force inline. We made it a constant, and then it just returns inventory overlay not equal to null pointer. So is it open? If it's not null, then yes, it is open. It's true. So we're asking the question, is the inventory open? And if it's not null, then true, it is open. One thing I do want to change here though, is I want to get rid of this force inline. So it just doesn't need to be there for that. It's not that big of a deal. So we're going to get rid of the force inline on that. So now let's check the closed inventory. I'm going to just head over here to the main HUD.cpp. So the next one we had up there on the list was the closed inventory. And we do have functionality in here, so we don't need to make any changes in that. So then lastly, we need to check the open inventory. And I believe this this is also set here. And this else, just so you know, this is for crafting window and things like that. So that's why it's collapsed there. It's nothing major at this point. So we're just coming in, we're adding the inventory overlay, which is a function here, add inventory overlay. So we're running through the function right here. We've already did this in a previous episode. Then we're going to go inventory overlay, set inventory windows. We're checking is what we're passing in here, the second inventory, is it valid? In other words, are we passing anything through? If we are, then this will create, would be an example of if we open up a storage inventory, it's going to open up that second window up there. So that's what that's checking right there. If we don't pass anything here, then it's going to pass false into this function here. And then we're going to update the inventory slot in the inventory, which we haven't done any inventory slots at this point. It's just going to call that function, and then it's going to pass in the inventory that we're passing in here. So let's go ahead, and we're going to worry about this in just a couple minutes. We're going to come back and make a change after we get this going. Let's set this function right here. So again, I'm going to hold control. This is going to go to the inventory overlay, and it's going to go to the set inventory window. So I'm going to select that, and it threw me into the CPP for the inventory overlay. And this will be where we set all our primary functionality to actually show us the inventory. So within this function here, I'm going to go if player inventory window dot is pending. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because we made this a soft pointer, a soft object pointer right here. So we're just making sure it is pending. If not, then we're going to do an asynchronous operation on it to load it. All right. So if it is pending, then we need to come down here. We go F streamable manager. We've done this before, F streamable manager, and it added the includes for me up here. You can see it right there. It populated that for me because Writer does that. So you might have to do that if you're inside Visual Studios or another IDE. And I'm going to add the ampersand, and I'm going to call this streamable, and I'm going to make it equal to UAsset manager, and we will get streamable manager right there. All right. So now we got our streamable variable. Let's go streamable.request async load. I'm going to go player inventory window dot to soft object path, comma f streamable delegate right here, f streamable delegate. And we're going to make this a create u object because we're going to create a function here that we're going to call this function to do what we need it to do once this is loaded. So before we do that, let's go ahead and create the function. So I'm going to come back over here to the inventory overlay, and in my function sections, or section, I should say, in my function section, I'm going to create a protected section. And in here, I'm going to go void create inventory windows, and I'm going to pass in a bool is secondary window, and I'm going to set its default value to false. So we don't need to pass in anything right here. It's just going to automatically assume we're not passing in an inventory window. But if we are passing in secondary window, then we can just enter the word true or whatever we need to do in there, whatever check we needed in there, then we could do that. Okay. So that's the end of that function. And now I'm going to create the method, create the definition. And so now we have this. Let's just finish writing this. Then we'll come back and write our create inventory windows once we're done with this function. But now that we have that, we can call it. So back up here in set inventory windows, create u object. Now this needs the user class. So pretty much where this function is going to be. So I'm going to type this, then I'm going to go ampersand, and it's going to be this right here. I'm just going to come down and I'm going to copy this all the way up to the parenthesis. We don't need the parenthesis. Control C, and then I'm going to drop it right back in here. Control V. Now we're going to get errors in here because generally speaking, what we've done in the past is we've done function calls in the previous one we did where we didn't have any arguments in here. So we can't add the parentheses in here in this object. If we put the parentheses in here, it's going to give us this error here underneath this, and it's going to tell us that we can't add the operator to an R value. What we need to do actually is now erase those parentheses, and if I go comma, now we can pass in our value right here. So for this, I'm just going to pass in false because we're in the player inventory window, so this is not going to be a secondary window, so I'm just going to type false, and then that's it. I'm going to terminate that right there. And then if that's not true, so we'll go else, then we just need to create inventory windows, and then I'm not going to pass in an argument because it defaults to false. Now we have to pass in the argument here because if we don't pass in an argument here, then we will continue to get the error. So we have to pass in, even though we defaulted the argument to false, we still have to pass it in right there. But down here, we don't have to. So that's it for that. We need to check to see in this function if we're setting the secondary window. So now we go if enable secondary window, then we check if secondary inventory window dot is pending. So same thing we did above there. So even though we already have this set up here, it's not within scope. This is only available to this function call right here. But now that we jumped out of it, we don't have it. So I'm just going to copy this entire thing and just make the slight adjustments that we need. Control C. I'm come down here and I'm just going to paste it all. So now we need to change this. It's not the player inventory window. It's going to be the secondary inventory window to soft path. Then we're going to come down here, and again, we're running the same function. We're going to call the same function here, except for now we need to toss in true, and I missed a parenthesis on my copy there. So now we have that. So basically, again, it's the same thing that we had up top here, but now it's for the secondary inventory window. And then from here, make sure you're within the correct if statement here. So if the secondary inventory is not pending, we need to go else, and inside this else, we type the same thing, create inventory windows, but now we'll pass in true. All right, and that's it for setting our inventory window. So I'm going to collapse this. Let's come down here to the create inventory window now, the function we just created. And in here, let's go a player controller, make it a pointer. I'm going to call it controller. I'm going to make it equal to get world. I'm going to call the function get first player controller that is on the get world object. Next, I'm going to create a couple local variables here. It's going to be a T object pointer, and it's going to be a view inventory window. This is going to be local copies of the inventory windows like we originally have that we're trying to set here. So inventory window, and I'm going to call this local inventory window. Then for this variable, we're going to do another ternary operator here. I'm going to go is secondary window, which is the, as you can see highlighted right there, it's an argument we're passing in. So if that is true with a question mark, then we want to go secondary inventory window, right? And if not, then we're going to set it as the player inventory window. Essentially, we're just running a ternary operator. If this is true, then we're just setting our local inventory window as a secondary inventory window. If not, then we know that it's going to be the player inventory. So then we can use that to set the widget as needed. And then I'm going to create another one. I'm going to make this a const T object pointer of type U horizontal box. And I'm going to call this local inventory spot equals, again, we're going to go is secondary window question mark. Then we need to go secondary inventory spot right there. And if it is false, then we need to go player inventory spot right there. And then again, terminate that one. And actually the reason why I was just looking at this, the reason why this is errored is because this needs to be a T soft object pointer. There we go. Got rid of that. So T soft object pointer. And then we got the local inventory spot right there. So now let's set the functionality. So we go local inventory window. So whichever window we're trying to set, local inventory window. So regardless if it's the secondary or player, we're going to be doing the exact same thing. So whatever it is, we go equals create widget. Then we need to pass in the controller, and the widget we want to create is the inventory window class. So make sure that that is set in blueprints. For me in Rider, I can come over here to .h, I can find the inventory, where is it? The inventory window class. And you can see it's unchanged in assets. So I'm going to have to make sure to set this inside of blueprints. If it was set in here, it would show me right here which blueprint it is set in. So I'll need to make sure to set that. Otherwise, we're not going to get it there. So same thing with you. All right, back here into the CPP file. So we have this now. We create our widget, and that's it for that function line there. So then we go local inventory spot. And then we need to go add child to horizontal box. Then we want to pass in the local inventory window dot get. And then lastly, I'm going to go local inventory window set visibility, slate visibility. I'm going to set this to visible, and there we go. Our error went away there. Now we got everything set, and that should be it for this particular function. So now we just need to make sure that everything's set. This should allow us to get our inventory windows shown up on screen. So let's go ahead and jump into the editor. I think we're mostly done here in C++ for now. All right, so there's going to be a few things that we have to do before we can actually run this. We're going to get some errors if we try to run it now. It's not going to work like we expect. We need to do some setup in here. So I'm in the player character blueprint, and I'm just going to come over here to the details. I'm going to type input, and then I'm going to find the toggle inventory action. This hasn't been set yet, so I'm going to drop this down, and I'm going to look here for the toggle inventory. And right here we have player open inventory. I'm going to change the name of this real quick. So let's open this up, and I'm here in the character inputs folder, actions, and I'm going to change this. So F2, I'm going to go IA underscore toggle inventory. All right, now that we got that, I'm going to come back out here actually, and we're going to check the IAM player, the input mapping, and I'm going to make sure that it is set here, toggle inventory. So the name changed in here, and then we have our functions right there. And then lastly, I'm going to close that one out, and I'm going to open up the IAM widget. I'm going to make sure that, see, we've got the close widget right here, but we're going to actually change this to be the toggle as well, IA toggle inventory. So we can get rid of those other widget actions that we created, but we can do that at a later time. Just make sure that your IAM widget is currently using the toggle inventory. Otherwise, it's not going to close for you. Then close that back out. And then now I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to set this again anyways, toggle. There we go, IA toggle. All right, another important thing we need to do, I'm going to open up the content drawer again. I'm going to come over here to the widgets folder, and I'm going to find the BP main HUD. I'm going to open this up, and we need to make sure that we have the inventory overlay right there, but we also need to set, actually we don't need to set it right here. I thought we had to set our window class here. It's actually in the inventory overlay. So I'm just going to open up the inventory overlay. Then we'll come back out here to the graph. I'm going to find the inventory window class. And right now for me, I don't have this set. So let's go WBP inventory window. This is a previous inventory window that we've set up. So I'm going to set that right there and make sure you compile and save it. And then finally, we need to go into our game mode. For this, I called it GM main. I'm going to come in here, and right here, we need to set the HUD class. So I'm going to change it from the default HUD to the BP main. Otherwise, none of this will end up working. So make sure you have that set, compile it. And then now we should be able to get the window up on the screen. So if we go ahead and play it now, I'm going to come over here to player and hit play. And if I hit tab, there we go. We get our window up, hit tab again, and it goes away. Perfect. So if we back out, we're actually going to get this error and warning right here. Let me drag the message log into the frame. And it says that inventory overlay does not support focus. You should set B is focusable to true. All right. So let's go do that. Inventory overlay. I'm just going to come in here into class defaults, I believe, and I'm going to type in focus in the search field. And there we go, is focusable. And that should get rid of the error if I hit play again. Now you can see though, the window opens. You can probably hear me hitting tab in the background. Now it's not closing. I have to select the window again and hit tab. That's not something we want to do. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. So that way we ensure we're always in focus on the inventory overlay. So back out of the game, and let's head back over into C++ real fast. All right, so back over here in the inventory overlay CPP file, we need to, we did this in the blueprints before, is we need to enable the tick. We don't have tick set up here right now, but we're gonna have tick check to see if we're in focus, and if not, it's gonna reset the focus. So let's go ahead and enable tick. So we go inventory overlay.h down here in the functions area under protected. I'm going to go virtual void native tick. I'm going to select that one there and then create the definition for it. And then just because I'm a little OCD, I'm going to cut it and I'm going to put it up towards the top. I like my overridden ones like tick and construct and all that. I like those to be up top. So we go. So now we have tick in here. So with this, we just need to go if has user focus. We go get world, then we get first player controller, and if it does have focus, then we go widget blueprint library, and then in here it's a static library, so we hit the 2 colons and go set focus to game viewport, and that's it. So now this should always set. If we lose focus on our overlay, this should set the focus for us. All right, so let's go ahead and build it and get back into the editor to see how this works. Actually, before we do that, we already know that we're getting the inventory window on the screen. So let's make it so we get the secondary inventory window on the screen. I'm going to head back over here to mainhud.cpp, and under open inventory right now, we're checking to see if we're passing a secondary inventory. We haven't enabled interaction yet, so I'm just going to bypass this. So I'm just going to take here in the set inventory windows, instead of checking is valid secondary inventory, I'm just going to comment this out for now. I'm just going to default it to true. Okay, so we're going to set it true. It's not going to affect this down here, so it's not going to try to update the inventory slots or anything like that, because this part of the if is still checking to see if that's there. This is just going to set the inventory window to true for us. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and rebuild it and jump back into the editor. All right, now that we're back in here, everything should be good. Let's go ahead and hit plus. So now not only should we be able to exit out without re-enabling or refocusing ourselves on the inventory screen, we should get 2 windows popping up. So go ahead and hit tab, and there we go. We've got it, our primary and our secondary right here. Hit tab again, it goes away. There we go. I don't have to refocus myself onto the viewport. It just will automatically interact for us. And that should do it. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, do me a favor, go down and hit that like button, subscribe while you're down there liking it, hit that notification bell to be notified whenever we drop a new video. If you got any questions, drop them down in the comments down below, or you can come on over to this Discord and ask them over there. And until the next one, peace.